Wait, no podcast next week. I'm going to be in Montreal for VGX stuff. So,
Okay.
I mean, unless we want to record on Wednesday of next week, and
Next week's my birthday, so I'm not gonna say no to a day off.
yeah, so
You'll be 36?
Yeah.
36.
I'll be 36.
God, so many years ago.
In theory, my life is half over. Well, actually, no, I say that, but we're actually.
Yeah, you're not going to last till 70.
This is Epic Battle Cries Skirmish 216. I'm glad it's there.
Hello and welcome to Epic Battle Cry. This is the place where we cut
Wait,
through the
that's a
crap.
chicken. Go, go, go.
It's not.
It's a place
That
where
is
we
not the
cut
foul.
through the turkey to bring you the
That was a foul.
gaming stories of the
Yeah,
day.
there was A, but not
I'm
B.
your host, Tony Grice, and with me, as always, and I'm not thankful for them, so I'm not going to say that, Brent Adams and Daniel Kaiser. Brent, how you doing this week, man?
What's up, my wonders of wrath, my herdsmen of havoc? How art thou?
Good.
You're welcome.
Yes.
And I say Wonders and Herdsmen because every time I hear Wonder, I think of that movie, that thing you do that Tom Hanks directed.
Yeah.
And
yes.
and the lead singer of that 60s pop
Oneaters.
band kept wanting to call the band the Herdsmen, spelled Heards.
Yeah.
Which I think is like the funniest, stupidest thing imaginable.
I think
So
it's
I
great.
always get a I
love that movie, actually.
Oh,
That
it's
is
a great movie.
It is such a good movie.
And Steve Zahn should have gone on to a career afterwards, but
Yeah,
unfortunately
it's
that
too
just
bad.
didn't happen.
Awesome. Well, good. It's good to hear from you. DK, how you doing this week?
I'm doing good, you friggin' turkey. I got really nothing to say. I'm kind of just winging it in this intro, but I guess that is fitting
Well, just
considering
say it
that it is
louder. It works for me.
Turkey Day. Yeah, so winging it's always good. But anyway,
yeah,
happy
we get
Thanksgiving to everyone. We love you guys, and we hope that you're gathering around your families and friends and some tryptophan, and don't go shopping yet. Save that for tomorrow. But anyway, yeah, there you go. Doing well.
Awesome. Well, we actually, this being Thanksgiving week, we've actually got some kind of neat stories, and of course, in the main topic, we'll have lots to talk about. So let's go ahead and run through the gauntlet.
Gauntlet!
All right, guys, we are here in the gauntlet, and we've got a couple of pretty interesting stories. The first up of which is that sometime in the spring of next year, you will be able to play Daniel Kaiser the game.
Oh,
Is it? Oh, I'm sorry. It's Lego the Hobbit. It's coming.
It's not nearly as fun.
DK, can you tell us a little bit about this? Do we have any details yet, or is it just a time frame?
No, we have some details. Lego the Hobbit, the game based on the movie, based on the book.
I'm sorry.
It's based on everything.
Lego, The Hobbit, the game,
Yeah.
the experience, the exclusive. It's
Based on a movie, which is based on a book,
based
which
on
is
the
based
movie,
on
based on the book, based on the old English legend.
Yes. So anyway, this game is, as you might suspect, going to be based on the first two films. As we're getting ready, we're just a couple of weeks away from the next film debuting. Very much looking forward to that myself. But this is going to be based on the first two films, coming to pretty much every console: Xbox 360, Xbox One, PS3, PS4, Vita, Wii U, 3DS, as well as Windows PC and Mac. You'll get to play as Bilbo Baggins, Gandalf the Grey, Thorin Oakenshield, and the whole crew as you visit key locations from the film, including Bag End, the treacherous high pass over the Misty Mountains, Mirkwood and Rivendell, and basically take on orcs and all the things from the movie. It's great. It's basically the best game to get high to, is what I'm kind of detecting.
I don't know. You
This
say
kind of
that.
aimed at more of a kid, family-friendly audience.
You say
Sure.
that, but I mean, you trip shrooms and play flower, and that will blow your mind.
There you go. But anyway, this is looking good. Obviously, the Lego franchise has been great. We had Lego Lord of the Rings. Now, I think inevitable having the Hobbit. What do you guys think of the game? They don't really need to do a ton of innovation, but they are going to bring the personalities, as they usually do, into the mix with the various characters that you'll be able to assume the role of. So, what do you guys think of playing through the Hobbit adventure within the land of Lego?
I'm all about it personally. As I was telling Tony and Lauren on this week's episode of The Axe Factor, I've been playing Lego Marvel Superheroes on my PlayStation 4, and it's fantastic. I mean, it's really, really fun. And I'm a big fan of these games, going back to the Lego Star Wars games, which were all phenomenal. The Lego Indiana Jones games, and I think that the sort of the formula for these kinds of games, that kind of combination of co-op play, of platforming and puzzle solving, combined with just having like a really sort of fun, tongue-in-cheek sort of attitude about the source material. It's a great way to celebrate those things. It's a great game to kind of play as a fan of whatever the property is. And they also have some really, really great gameplay. So it's one of those rare video game series that, not all the time. I mean, there's definitely been ups and downs in the series, but more often than not, the games tend to be really, really worthwhile games for players as well as fans of whatever.
And TG, probably as close as we're coming right now to a surefire hit with these games, as you mentioned, Brett, kind of down to a formula, but they haven't lost the magic, or they haven't lost the fan service, right, TG?
I guess I don't know. I will admit that I'm not necessarily the probably. I don't even want to say that I'm not the market for it, but I was playing Marvel Super.
You have thumbs, right?
I do.
Then you're in the market.
So
you're in the market
how does this not get the same kind of criticism that like a Battlefield or something that comes out, or Call of Duty comes out every year?
That's like a question you don't ever want to hear asked in a truck stop bathroom, like between the stalls. Hey, you got thumbs, right?
I don't know. I just don't quite get it. I mean, I think it's cool. I think if you like the previous games and that same formula, I totally get it. But like I was playing Marvel Superheroes with Brent that first day on PS4,
and you really
I
sucked
just didn't
at it.
really get it. Like, I mean, I just didn't. I don't know. It's just not my thing. I think it's
you
cool.
Like the Marvel movies?
What's that?
You like the Marvel movies, though, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I didn't know. The gameplay to me was very kind of like, to me the gameplay reminded me a lot of like. I mean, honestly, it reminded me of something like Knack, just with more of it going on more quickly. Like, it just seemed like a kind of a beat 'em up, and then you kind of did these puzzles every once in a while. Just, I don't know. It wasn't my thing. But hey, it's if you're a fan of it.
And by not your thing, you mean not very good at it.
Well, yeah. I mean, like, there'd be times where with crap going on, you couldn't even tell where because you'd have to switch between 3 different characters all the time. You never knew who you were. Yeah, I think it was kind of designed poorly, but
well, it sounds like you're willing to let go of it. So
Jeez.
Yeah. All right.
This whole story was leading to that, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's the only reason it's in
I
here.
pick all the stories based on how many puns I could put in there.
You joke about that, and yet I believe you.
I will admit,
sincerely believe you.
There have been some weeks where it's like, you're teetering between story 3 and story 4, and you're like, which one? I'll pick the one.
Which one can I make a joke
I can make a
Which
pun
one I
out
can
of
make a
this.
joke, yeah.
I'll take it.
All right, well, so
the truth
I'm sure there will
comes
be
out.
some way you can make fun of this, but it is kind of interesting that we are having the announcement of not 1, not 2, not 3, not even 4, but 5 Persona
Jesus.
games, and one of them is Persona 5. Brent, you want to tell us a little bit about...
Ironically.
That seems like a joke all in and of itself. So yes, Atlas has confirmed that Persona 5 is coming to the PlayStation 3. That's pretty much all we know. It'll be coming in winter 2014, but as you said, there's plenty of other Persona titles to talk about. So first up, Persona Q, Shadows of the Labyrinth, which is a dungeon crawler for the 3DS. That is hitting Japan June 5th next year.
Okay.
That'll feature chibi versions of the characters from Persona 3 and 4. We've also got, for PS Vita owners, Persona 4 Dancing All Night, a music rhythm game that is also targeted for 2014. And finally, fighting game fans can look forward to Persona 4, the Ultimax Ultra Suplex Hold.
Yes.
I am not kidding about that title. They are dead serious about that shit.
Yeah.
And that is coming to PS3 in, you guessed it, summer 2014. So, you guys Persona fans, like, is this, I mean, like, it's rare that you see a glut of announcements like this covering so many different platforms. I mean, they are really, really getting ready to unleash the maelstrom next year.
It's one thing if you see, like, the announcement is for a bunch of the same game for a bunch of different platforms, but
This
literally
ain't that.
each one of these, and I do apologize, I said there's 5. I for some reason I got confused, probably because there's fucking 4 of them. And but still, the fact is you're getting like 4 completely different games. I mean, you're getting the new Persona game. You're getting a sort of offshoot, super deformed version for the 3DS. You're getting a dance rhythm, dance music game on the Vita, which actually I think is maybe the oddest choice because it sort of seems like that's where the 3DS game would have maybe fit a little better. And then you're getting a follow up to their fighting game, their arcade fighting game. So I don't know. I think it's pretty cool. I love their arcade fighting games. I will say I haven't really played too much of their other series, but I know they have been pretty popular on the Sony portable formats, haven't they?
Hopefully these will all be, coming to America just like Eddie Murphy, because they've been confirmed for Japan. But the bottom line is that the interesting thing for me here is Persona 5 being confirmed and announced, but for the PS3. A lot of PS4 owners now traded in their PS3s, and without backwards compatibility, it'll be interesting to see. I'd imagine that they would make the game available as a digital download or something, but it's only been announced for PS3 at this point. Hopefully they can convert it to PS4 because there's going to be a lot of people who don't have PS3s anymore at that point. But anyway, this is a big franchise that I'm happy to always see go on because it has such a passionate fan base for Persona. You asked about, our exposure to it or interest in it. I'm happy that it's there. I've played a little bit of it on PSP.
That's quite an endorsement.
Well, no, what I'm saying is I've never really sunken into it, but I recognize its value to the industry as being something that is not like this super mainstream title that is simply, just a rehash of the same type of concept every year. This franchise tries to innovate and be really interesting with what they do. So even though I haven't personally dove into it, I'm happy that people have been able to and that they support it for what it's worth.
Yeah, I would say for like a maybe slightly smaller franchise, it's very big in the group that it's big in. I think they've got another new anime coming out. Like there's a lot of different avenues. I think it's actually really just cool to see that they're having fun with the franchise. I think like they're doing all kinds of different things, and surely you can kind of find something in there that you might be interested in if you want to. I mean, if you just have if it's something you're just not interested in all, I totally get that. But the characters are kind of interesting. One thing I love the visual style of the series. Like seeing some of the anime, having played the arcade game. Seeing some of the footage from these other games. I mean, it's just got this bright, colorful, really cool. I understand a little bit of the story, and it sounds like it's got kind of a questionable sort of. Well, I don't even want to get into it. I don't want to be sure, but I think you do some kind of bad things in the series, but it's questionable things in the series. But anyway, it's a cool series. I think for fans that are into it. So
totally,
And for people who are just glad it's there. Some people are into Lego games. Some people are into Persona.
And for people who, like me, are just glad that
glad it's there. Are you a fan of the Pacific Ocean? I'm really glad it's there.
Never really spent a lot of time in it. Happy it's there.
But I know people that have, and they're fans of it. All right, so someone who you may or may not be a fan of as well, but has definitely left his mark on the industry and looks to continue that is John Carmack.
Yeah,
and he is moving on to new endeavors. At least finally, I guess. DK, what's he doing these days?
To the dismay of QuakeCon goers everywhere who longed for the hours of speech by John Carmack, I have the announcement that Mr. Carmack has joined the Oculus Rift VR team. He joined it earlier this year and is now leaving id Software for good. Obviously, he was at the helm of huge franchises during his tenure at id, including Doom, Quake, things like that. I would dare say, what was the last game that they? Oh, Rage. Not really on the list, but it was still pretty cool. So anyway,
I'm glad it's there.
I'm glad it's there. Carmack. That is so the episode title. Carmack. Is going to serve as Chief Technology Officer at Oculus and is, very much been a big part of trying to get this technology into the mainstream. Some people, upon his departure from id, were speculating that, hey, he could help take the Oculus Rift technology into bigger and better places, saying, even maybe it could come to the PS4. But he responded in a tweet saying that Sony would have to allow support for the sensor interface, so he's not holding his breath on Oculus Rift coming to the PlayStation before. But what do you guys think about id Software losing John Carmack? What is that going to mean? Obviously, Tim Willits from id Studios, has kind of assured everyone that John's work there on id 5 was completed, id Tech 5, and so they're able to move on with all their projects. It's not going to stunt the growth or development of any of those. But he is quite the visionary, and even though he's a little long in the tooth, as they say, it should be interesting to see how this move impacts both id Software and then, of course, Oculus.
As far as Oculus is concerned, I mean, I think that this is a really, really good match. Prior to this current renewed interest in VR, which Carmack created almost single-handedly with his demo for Doom running on the prototype VR rig that he put together a couple of years ago. And then from that we've got Oculus Rift, which is obviously the company that has been most eager to get into that space. We've also found out that Valve is working on their own VR hardware that they're going to be talking about at their conference, I think in January. There are persistent rumors that Sony's got something that they're working on. Sony was talking about using the Oculus Rift. They've got a couple of units, and supposedly other areas of Sony have been working on some sort of Sony branded VR rig that would be very likely to work on the PlayStation. I don't know if Carmack has specific knowledge of that. Like maybe that's why he's saying he's not holding their breath, because Sony's not going to open up their platform when they've got their own device that could be waiting in the wings. Yeah. So I think that Carmack really, really believes in the future of VR, and that gaming specifically is going to be the thing that launches VR for everybody. Whatever applications it may have, gaming is going to be the thing that brings everybody to VR for the first time, maybe. And so I think that this move is just Carmack doubling down on what something he's been very enthusiastic about and believes wholeheartely is going to be the future of gaming initially, and then probably lots of other things in the long term.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think it's a perfect fit for Oculus Rift. I think he's, like you said, he's definitely the one that's probably been pushing it the most. I gotta be honest, I think this is a good thing for id too, because unfortunately I think the same sort of growth potential there is at Oculus, like for needing someone that kind of has Carmack's ability to sort of look at the technology and sort of think maybe a little outside the box, or at least how to make it work within the world. I think that will work really well there. I really feel like id has kind of been in a I think they've been in a funk for many, many years. I mean, really, he always has kind of been the key person, I think, behind the id Tech engines, that have run their games, and that they do license to other games, not nearly to the level of, like, say,
Unreal.
Exactly. But I do think that he's been there, and I don't know. I think their games have been, I think, slightly, kind of uninspired. There's just not a lot happening there that I think was very interesting. And I think in a way, I don't know that is him to put on his doorstep to blame him for that, but I think he had to be a big part of some decisions that were made there. And since I don't think that company's been moving in the right direction, I think this may be a good time for them to have sort of a fresh start and maybe look at some new endeavors. But I do think it's a good thing for Oculus Rift, because I think the way he looks at things will really kind of help them there. I do think he is one of the creepiest looking people ever.
Oh, he is not.
He looks like a serial killer pedophile.
Oh,
I mean, I don't
stop.
Jeez.
Have you looked at a picture of him? Seriously,
I've
looked into his eyes?
I've met
He's
him
pure
several times.
evil.
He's a nice guy. He's not evil.
did I say he was not a nice guy? I didn't say he was that. I said he looks like that. I'm not accusing him. I didn't say I have proof that he's done these things. Look, I'm glad he's around. I'm glad he's there. But I just think he looks a little creepy.
He's hitting the jets. He's out. There he goes.
All right. So last but not least, we have the news that Activision is exploring ways to bring back Crash Bandicoot.
Yes.
Yay.
What are some of these ideas that they're thinking of?
Well, Crash Bandicoot is a series that obviously goes back many years, was exclusive to the to the ye olde PlayStation, and it's one of those things that that I don't think that everybody's played, but everybody's glad that it's there. And there were rumors swirling around recently that Sony might have reacquired the Crash Bandicoot property from Activision and were planning some grand return to form for the series. Well, Activision, eager to smash the hopes and dreams of all gamers, quickly pointed out that they still have the Crash Bandicoot property, but that they are, quote, continuing to explore ways in which we could bring the beloved series back to life, end quote. So no announcement, no promise that we're going to find out more in the coming months, or maybe check back with us at E3 next year. Basically, Activision found out that gamers still gave a shit about Crash Bandicoot when this rumor hit last week, and now they smell money, and they just want to let you know that they're continuing to figure out ways to get that money away from you.
They need to just give it to Naughty Dog and let them go back to make. I mean, this game. You're gonna tell me the first couple of Crash games weren't awesome? I mean, they really were fun.
They were awesome for the time, though. I don't think they have aged nearly as well as like some classic series have. Like
That's a fair point. Yeah, I mean, you just pick up Mario and play it on the SNES, and you're like, "This is awesome."
Well, exactly. Like I think
it's just because it was such early days of 3D, and I mean, the control scheme and everything has just evolved so much.
Well, but that's the whole thing. Like, he really only existed in that 32-bit generation. Like, realistically, I think we had a few things here or there, but that was where the bulk of the Crash Bandicoot games came, was on the PS1. We had his platforming games, and we had his car racing games, and then I think you might have had one or two of those on the PS2 possibly. But I mean, that was where it all came from. And like, you look at someone like a Sonic or a Mario or something like that. I mean, their games spanned multiple consoles. They have changed their formula multiple times. I mean, you can't compare, even though there are similarities. The game that you play Super Mario World 3D now. And even though it has similarities to, it's a completely different game from the game back in the 8 and 16-bit days. So I do think that there is something to be said for the fact that, like, if you really like the games at that time, and you want to see it come back, I do think like frankly, like a Naughty Dog, or who's the guys that did like the Sly Cooper series?
Sucker Punch. Oh man,
Sucker Punch. Yeah, like I think, like those kind of studios, I think, get the kind of gameplay that would make a good Crash Bandicoot game. I'm just not really sure that there's enough interest in it to really bring it back. I mean, I'm not saying that it's crappy or that it shouldn't be brought back. I mean, I'm glad it's there, but I think that there's probably less interest in it, especially because I think a lot of people that play games now probably never even played one of his games before. If they're young enough.
I mean, I guess I can see that this might have been lightning in a bottle for, perfect storm of kind of things. People wanted a 3D game. He was a character that kind of suited that, a new mascot for Sony of sorts, in a time where, they were trying to show off the capabilities of the hardware. But the games were fun. My question is, him as a mascot, does he have the longevity? Does he have the identity?
No.
Does he have the uniqueness to stand with some of these other mascots?
No.
That's sort of what I was saying. Yeah.
If he did, he would have stood the test of time. But the whole point is that the PlayStation generation, like that 32-bit era, that was really in a way the kind of the last generation of the mascots. I mean, Nintendo has held on to Mario, but that's because Nintendo has kind of focused inward and has not really expanded their franchise as much beyond what they
and Nintendo has done it with like
established.
all of their IPs. I mean, like Nintendo, that is Nintendo's job. Is continuing on those characters.
They
Everyone
always
else is sort of
rejuvenate them for a new generation.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the whole thing, is that the PlayStation continued on, the Xbox established itself without the mascots that that Nintendo and Sega had. For all those years. So I guess I just kind of feel like we've sort of moved past the point where we kind of need a mascot for our consoles. And so, Crash was, for like that brief period of time where there was overlap with kind of like, the previous generations and I think the current generations, which sort of started with the PlayStation. Crash was like, just like a character that could only really sort of work on that level at that time. But I think moving past there, it's just, the whole notion of like a console having a mascot is, I don't know. I think we've just kind of moved past it for the most part.
I totally agree. But do you think that it is worthy of bringing the series back? I mean, not trying to push it as Sony's new mascot or anything.
No,
but
but like honestly, like if we were going to do like a best case scenario, and like I don't even know if Naughty Dog's the company to do it anymore. I mean, they're in such a different place now than they were in the late '90s with this game. But I mean, something like a Sucker Punch, something like if this game were to be reimagined as a modern, 3D platformer, and you got some really great talent in there to do, I don't know, basically just say, we're going to reinvent platforming for a new generation all over again. We're going to do this like amazing game that resurrects this character. I'd be totally down for it. But just the character in and of itself doesn't have enough nostalgia for me personally to really get excited about.
If it were to come back, don't you think that it would probably be the kind of game like the 3D Mickey's Castle of Illusion that happened, or the remake of DuckTales that we just saw? Like that's almost the kind of game that
I don't know if it's that beloved, but yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. Like I think that's the style. Like not trying to put AAA title time into it, but try to put like a little bit of time, make it a downloadable game, $15 or so. You either remake the original games or just make new levels, kind of in the vein of the old games. That could almost work, but I do think that that's probably the best case scenario.
Yeah, it's pretty much just crash and burn from here on out.
All right, guys. Well, we are here in the main topic this week.
Xbox on. Sorry.
Of course. Great. Thanks. My Xbox just came on downstairs. Thank you.
Daniel. That's great.
Mine might have as well, actually. Damn it.
But Tony's got a disc in his drive.
The big topic this
safe.
week. The big topic this week, of course, is the launch of the Xbox One, the second volley in the next gen console that's happening in really a week's time. From one to the other. We want to talk a little bit about some things. I know. I talked yesterday with Brent and Lauren on the X Factor a little bit about some of the things I had concerns with and some of the things I liked about it. But DK, I think you want to kind of take us down some of the
Sure.
things that we'll be discussing today.
Sure. Well, I mean, in the same way that we kind of evaluated Sony's road to launch and their execution on actually getting the console out to market, and evaluating, how we felt about the platform and its games and its experience, I think we need to do the same thing here for Xbox One in terms of just kind of seeing how we felt about Microsoft launching the platform. Obviously, I was there for the launch events on Spike TV. That was more of a party, I would say, compared to Sony's. Sony's was a party too, but there was, for reasons we'll get into in a minute, just had a different type of atmosphere. But anyway, and then of course talk about our
Less
exposure.
giveaways.
Exactly. Exposure and experience on the platform. So kicking off, full disclosure, I have an Xbox One because Microsoft gave one to me, so I have been able to play it. I've mentioned on the podcast.
That was part of their customer loyalty program, right?
Yes, sure, I guess. But I love the constant. All joking aside, I have actually had time to play it, and I think the big thing with this platform compared to the PlayStation 4, because of everything Microsoft's trying to do, is experiencing it on a daily basis in your home is a different type of thing. There's more to consider, not good or bad. It's just you have to see how it works with your TV and all this other stuff compared to the PlayStation 4. And I've had a chance to do some of that. So we'll dive in, but let's get some of your impressions first. After acknowledging the fact that Microsoft did move 1 million units of the console in the first 24 hours, just like Sony. So it says
not just like Sony. Microsoft moved 1 million consoles in the first 24 hours worldwide. Sony moved 1 million consoles in North America.
That's true. Yes.
So that means that Sony still got their European launch this Friday, which if they sell more than one console means they've outsold Microsoft at launch.
But
and that's fair. But I think you can. I think you still can argue that's impressive. I mean, it was impressive when Sony did it. It's impressive
like twice.
When Microsoft
it's like,
did it.
I mean, it's like somebody was saying that like in some market, I can't remember if it was like London or wherever, but like in one market, like they doubled what they did with the 360 launch. And to me, the takeaway from that for both Sony and Microsoft is it shows you just how much gaming has grown since the last consoles debuted.
Yeah,
and how huge this audience of gamers has become. So I think it's fucking fantastic.
We're going to just dive right in, but to address all the headlines, there's that million consoles sold. The game Sunset Overdrive's coming in 2014. We found that out. Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes is also going to have exclusive content on the Xbox One. That was also announced during the PS4 launch. And beyond that, there were some issues with the disk drives, broken disk drives, and I guess Microsoft has been giving out some games and replacing systems to accommodate people who have been impacted by that. So anyway, that being said, what's everybody's impression of the way Microsoft launched the Xbox One and also the platform thus far? Tony?
Well, I mean, I think I think the system at launch was pretty much what I expected. I mean, I think that the system, the hardware itself, I think is pretty solid. I do think that, there's no way you can talk about the Xbox One without comparing it to the PS4. I think it's just, to do so is silly.
Is folly.
I think that the hardware is good. I do think that there is definitely a focus where, like, if there's this balance between gaming and just lifestyle or whatever you want to call it, like all the other
general entertainment.
Other stuff. Mm-hmm. Yes, whereas Sony has definitely gone more the gaming route this time, and Microsoft's definitely trying to do a lot more. I do think, just as a general rule, I think the hardware side of things, I think Sony might have a little bit of edge, especially as the years go on in terms of hardware. But so far, the games look good. I do think my biggest, and I've said this, we said this on YouTube, said this on X Factor yesterday, and today, I'm not pleased with the experience I've had so far with the interface as a whole. Just I don't like the way that the interface is laid out. I don't like the way Kinect works. How responsive it is and well it works, things like that. Before everybody comes crawling out there. Yes, I know there's videos. Xbox, like Microsoft had to put up a video basically explaining to you how to use your Xbox after like 3 or 4 days because, frankly, I think they realize that it's not as intuitive as it should be. If you know exactly what to do and exactly where to go, it does work fine. It is, it's okay. But the fact is, you shouldn't really have to. You shouldn't be challenged by your new equipment. It should just work. That's something that I've always said. One reason I like Apple products. Apple products just work. They're intuitive. They work the way you expect them to. For the most part. I mean, nothing is ever absolutely perfect, but they're pretty damn close to it. The Xbox pulled me out of the experience of where I was getting excited about playing some of the games because of the other issues I ran into.
Uh-huh.
I do think one little thing I do think is kind of interesting, and I do just I'm not a Sony fanboy, I'm not an Xbox fanboy. If anything, I'm a Nintendo fanboy, and I would argue that
I'll second that.
I would argue the best game that you could be playing this week was Super Mario World 3D. Even with two brand new
Zelda.
Or Zelda. I mean, but here you go. Either way,
yeah.
I think you'd have some better options. But the one thing I do think is interesting, and I do think that this is one of those things that everybody, PlayStation and Microsoft and Nintendo for that matter, you have the PS4 comes out, and everybody wants to jump on it over its less than 1% failure rate of its units. And everybody's going crazy until the Xbox comes out and has its own small issue that affects a small. And it's like people just need to realize that. These things happen. Neither one of these platforms is better than the other. They're just different. The issues that I have with the Xbox are not things that I don't think will be fixed. Matter of fact, I'm actually glad to see that I think the hardware as a whole, I feel pretty good about. If there was something I felt bad about the hardware, like legitimately like, okay, this was a poor choice of something, I would be more worried about it than software, because software they can always tweak.
Yeah, sure.
And the one thing I will give Microsoft credit for is they always tweak it. With the one thing being that I think they fucked up the analog sticks on the Xbox One controller. They're
Clearly.
too loose. They're just, we've talked about this a couple different times.
Yeah.
That is the only hardware issue that I think, and I'm not saying that can't be addressed at some other point, but having played both for a decent amount of time now, I think both are indicative of the way that these two companies are going forward, and I still need a little time to figure out which one I think is the better, which one's going to kind of win out in the end.
Or which one you're going to just use more and whatnot. But yeah, that's a very good summary. Brett, you don't have an Xbox One, right? But what has been your experience thus far with the platform, and what did you think of the way Microsoft launched it?
As far as the launch goes, I mean, I think that they were relatively successful with that. I mean, certainly they're very happy with this, over 1 million units sold worldwide, during their big launch event. So I think that certainly that's gone well for them. As far as my initial impressions of the hardware, on the whole, I really like the controller. They have fixed the D-pad. I just wish that hadn't come at the sacrifice of the analog sticks, which I do think the ones on the 360 are superior. And it's just that 360 gamepad was damn near perfect. I mean, it was damn near the perfect controller, and all they needed to do was take the D-pad out of the Xbox One controller, put it in the 360 controller, and that's all they really needed to do. And the fact that they somehow managed to kind of take a step back on that, I am a bit disappointed by. From the time that that Tony and I, hey, Sony rhymes with Tony. From the time that Tony and I got to spend with the Xbox One, I will say that that right now the differences, like as far as graphics and things like that, are not too stark. Everything that we played looked really good, ran really smoothly. High frame rates are obviously something that that PC gamers have been demanding out of their games for a while, and it's something that console gamers are finally going to get a taste of in this current in this now current generation, 60 frame per second gaming. So I think that like all the titles and everything looked pretty good. As I was talking about on X Factor, I personally think that Microsoft has the stronger launch lineup. I think that now, and admittedly, I have not played Rise, which is kind of, I think, turning into the knack of the Microsoft camp, and that it was like a very promising looking game that may have ended up letting people down. But I thought Rise looked very interesting. Out of everything on the Microsoft side, I was probably most interested in checking that out. Yeah. I thought the story looked very interesting, and I thought that it could be the beginning of a very interesting new property. So I was very interested in Rise. I thought Dead Rising 3 looked cool, and of course, being a racing game fan, I am enormously interested in Forza.
Yep.
So I think that in terms of software, I got to say that I really think that Microsoft had a strong showing, and certainly the things that the things that Tony is talking about in regards to the
you're subliminally trying to get people to think I'm a Sony
because he's such a fanboy.
It's either you or it's me. I'm not sure which, but
Daniel doesn't rhyme with Xbox.
You are a cross-dresser, which is
cross. Yeah, sure.
But the thing that I was going to say though is that as with Tony, I was not very impressed by the UI, and as a matter of fact, I went back and looked at the launch or the announcement, like the Xbox One announcement press event, and if you look at the UI that they show off there, it's different than what they have right now, and it's better. I mean, frankly, it's a little bit more like the older 360 dashboard in that you have these, you've got these titles or these headings at the top for games, movies, television, and so forth, and so everything is kind of contained, within these different tabs, as it were. And the way that they've got the dashboard working right now, everything's just kind of mixed in together, and it's not very intuitive. It doesn't make as much sense, at least to me. And so I really am kind of scratching my head a little bit over what they showed off, which I thought looked pretty good. I mean, in terms of visual flair, I've always thought the 360 dashboard really looked fantastic, but just was not as fast to navigate as the XMB was on the PlayStation 3. And so, the idea coming into this is like, well, they'll be able to have that great visual style that the 360 dashboard had, but they'll be able to have something really snappy and responsive that you should be able to navigate much faster. And so I am scratching my head a little bit over that, because it seems like the controller again, it seems like they kind of took a step backwards a bit on the dashboard. But the good news, as Tony pointed out, the good news is that that's just software. That's very easily fixable. And this could very well be a situation where they've got an update right around the corner. Maybe the first part of next year, something where they'll be able to address that. So that's definitely not a long-term concern over the console. It's a little bit annoying right now, but that's going to get sorted. It's not going to be an issue.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I agree pretty much with everything you guys have said. I mean, my takeaway has been, kind of first and foremost on the games front. Obviously the games are the primary thing here, most important thing, and I feel like Rise is a great launch title, but it's really kind of a missed opportunity. I mean, I visited with those guys in Crytek, and it's they're super ambitious about trying to have a super great story-driven game for the first time out of their studio. But I just feel like it's just way too violent to be mainstream in the way that they want it to be. I mean, the game is great game. It's quite a looker. The combat is fun, but can get monotonous. And I feel like, if they had just dialed it back a little bit, and maybe even like the later stages be as violent as the whole game is, or have an Assassin's Creed level of combat in terms of violence and stuff, then maybe it wouldn't have been so. It would have been a little bit more marketable. And the reason why I'm saying it is because it's an exclusive launch title, and just like Forza 5 is like, I mean, that's a reason to buy a console. Forza 5, if you're a racing fan, I feel like Rise, if you're an action fan, yeah, but it's polarizing to some people. Has kind of been my experience with it and whatnot. Dead Rising 3 is fun. I been playing that a little bit. I haven't really played the previous entries all that much, but this one is fun, and it's I think we're still at that point where we're not like, okay, this is a total next gen experience on either the Xbox One or the PS4, but there are subtle things, and whether or not they're good games is really what it comes down to. And I think Dead Rising is a good game. NBA 2K is an awesome game, and looks fantastic on both platforms. But as far as the hardware is concerned, like I mentioned, there's so much to do with this thing, or like just to experience before you could pass judgment. I've not maybe had the same experience you guys are having, just because I can't recall too many things where like I've had a super negative experience with the interface. I mean, it's anything I've really been looking for. I mean, what have you guys had trouble finding or whatnot? I mean, because
do you notice the fact that anytime you choose an option, it reorganizes your apps menu, like to move that thing you just chose to the forefront?
Yeah, I mean, I've noticed that, but I'm not. I mean, I guess so.
I think that's a very poor choice, because that basically means that if you played, so if let's say Forza is your only game that you've got, and you went in and you chose to snap a menu, to do a party chat, and to choose the settings, it's already moved back to the fourth spot, which moves it off of the front of your dashboard and into, you have to go into like your game choices, unless you pinned it, which I mean you can pin it to the other.
Or if you just say play Forza. Like that's been my experience. Like I mean,
well,
I just
no, it's
it's
Xbox go to Forza Motorsports 5. First off, you do have to say it that way. You can't just say play Forza.
Sure.
Those are the little things, I guess, and that's the thing. Like I said on the X Factor yesterday, I will give you that I think I am more critical of things than most people. Like I do, little things do tend to bother me. The choices they made with some of the with some of the options in there, I felt like they should have given you some kind of contextual thing at the bottom for the button commands. Mm-hmm. Like, everybody is saying like, you can now, there's like, command sheets of like how to do everything through the voice commands. I don't like using the voice commands. I don't it's just not a preference. I don't like doing there's some things I like it for.
Sure.
I actually think for the game DVR it's handy, because you're in the middle of a game, you can be doing certain things, you can do a little bit of stuff. But like when I'm just trying to get around the menu, I prefer to use the D-pad. I don't want to, constantly be calling out stuff. I mean,
I totally agree. I've found that it's really, and that's the thing, you're commanding the hardware. You're not like having a conversation. And I think that the thing is, like, a lot of people think, oh, I could talk to my TV, so I want to play Forza. No,
we think we can do it as easy as they showed it in the videos, though, which is like, Xbox, play Forza. And it's not that. It's, you got to say it a certain way. And I think that is a little bit of a thing that is on them, of they put out an idea and it's not what they've put out. It's not quite the same. I'm not saying that it's not usable. The one other thing I would say, did you by any chance play any Kinect featured games?
Yeah.
Like, did you play the water race, whatever it is, fucking Kinect Sports tutorial for you?
No, I mean, I've used Kinect commands in games, if that's what you mean, but I haven't played.
No, I'm talking about playing a game that used Kinect. Like, it was the worst experience I have had playing a game just about ever. Like, I was like, really, can I not just play the game with the controller? Because the Kinect was so sort of spotty in terms of, or at least in timing, and how it in its reaction time into playing some of the games where it is seeing you on screen moving. Like when I would watch the little videos, like, I'm clearly on screen, it can see me clearly, I've got the lights on, it's it should not be hard for it to do, and it was just
Yeah.
It was just not a good experience. So I don't know. I really would. I would like to hear, honestly, because I'll be brutally honest with you. I think if you didn't buy a PS4 and you bought an Xbox, or if you didn't buy an Xbox and you bought a PS4, the experience you've got, you're going to be pretty much, I think, for the most part, pretty happy with either side of things. Because, it's a new console. You're excited about it. You wouldn't be buying it if you weren't looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I want to see the people that have played both to a decent amount. I really want to see how they feel the difference is, because I think you can be a little more critical because you at least are looking at like, well, I do like how this worked over here better than the way this worked over here. Mm-hmm. I think it's hard to be critical of the thing you just spent $500 on, or in your case got for free. But no, I'm totally kidding. I think that is awesome, but I do think that there is something to be said for. To be brutally honest with you, I think you would be slightly more critical of the system had you just spent $500 on it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying that you're not being fair to it. I'm just saying that there's a little part of your head that I think gives things a slight tint to, well, my expectation of it is different because I did just have it handed to me versus shit, I just spent $500 and plus with tax and all the other stuff that I bought on this stuff. I'm not as happy with it as I hope to be.
Sure, totally. No, I mean, but I'm evaluating from the standpoint of, what does it do in the house, and how does it work, and
so tell me then, because I really am kind of interested in what do you like about it? Like, what is it that you kind of like that is different? I mean,
again, the non-gaming. I mean, the gaming stuff is, obviously, but they're pitching this whole console and the one experience on it. So I was watching football with my boys the other day, and just brought up NBA 2K during halftime and played it for just a couple minutes, and then snapped to check on the score and saw that they were getting back to the game, and then went back right to the game, left the game where it was, and then my mom called on Skype, and we answered, and she went full screen on our TV in our living room. And yeah, some of this will probably grow old, but like that was the exact experience I had on Sunday with the Xbox One, and it was, I'm not saying, and I never have said like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever, but what those features have worked, and they've worked well, or just walking in last night.
I would love for you to play though a Kinect only game, because I really would like to see if you're.
Oh, why would I?
I'm
not interested in playing a Kinect only game. I mean, that's not my taste. I'm not gonna. But I mean, I do think that I've played them at events, and they're exactly what you said. I mean, my experience is not like, wow, this is great.
Not been wildly positive.
No, it's not been positive, and I'm certainly not saying it has. But the just putting the dinner plates down last night when my kids were, and saying Xbox mute, and like the TV, and I was far away from the TV, and it just muted, and I could turn the music on.
But I mean, couldn't they have done that with a net cam though? Like that, the technology you're talking about, they could have done with a net cam with a microphone, not with like this fucking thing. Because like, I guess that's my whole point. I don't feel like the motion command, basically anything that has to do with the reason that we had to pay $100 more for this system to get this Kinect thing, they could have done with like a $50 webcam. Honestly, that the features that people like, that they hear that it hears the word snap to and goes to whatever app, that can be done by any microphone. The fact that when you go to Skype, you have the camera in your living room and you can do that.
Right.
They could do that with anything.
Is it worth $100 more to be able to do that specific thing?
Anyway, but
no, I'm not saying it's. And before I get pigeonholed into being an X-bot again, I'm just talking about my experience. I wasn't doing that. I wasn't doing that. I really wasn't. I'm just explaining what was cool about using the features and functionality, and without, I don't want to feel like I have to bash the thing just because, whatever. But I don't think the Kinect games are good.
I am a little just the features, like the Kinect to me speaks to more features than the things that I think people are enjoying about it. They're like, hey, I can say this and it happens. I'm like, well, that really doesn't have anything to do with Kinect. Like, I mean, it has Kinect arguably has a little bit extra processing power to, process your voice and things like that a little better. But I mean, for the most part, that's not the hardware that's really at the core of Kinect was to be able to pick you out, create the skeletal form of you out of, what it sees on the camera and shit like that. So I don't know. I guess it's just what you think that you should be, like what you feel like you should be getting out of something, we're just on different pages on. And I respect that, and I'm glad it is working well for you.
Yeah.
One question I've got, Daniel, I'm kind of curious about the whole thing with being able to snap using Kinect. Have you done that yet? Like where you're supposed to be able to like you kind of like reach out with your hands and you like make a fist and then like either move your hands together or apart. Have you done that by any chance?
Nope, not done one single motion gesture. Nope, never.
Okay,
I don't see myself doing that either. I guess.
Well, it doesn't seem nearly as convenient as just using voice commands.
The bottom line is it's always easier to use the controller. It is always like for the most part. When you plug the thing in, it's like,
it's
great.
It's not easier to start a party chat with the controller. I will give you that, because you could just say Xbox go to party chat versus like going through 3 or 4 menus to get to it.
I'm sorry. I guess what I'm saying is the accuracy of using the controller is always there. You know, so for me, what I've found is it's about the convenience of knowing that I can do that if I want to do that. But obviously, I'm sitting there with the controller playing a game. But if I get up from the game or I put the game down and we as a family decide to watch TV or I'm doing something else, it has been pretty neat to be able just to say, Xbox, watch TV, go to it, and then walk away. I make a sandwich. I come in. I've got my hands full, and I say, Xbox, rewind. And it goes like that. That has been pretty
DVR
neat.
thing.
The DVR thing has been pretty cool to be able to do that. Watching TV, issue commands to my TV.
I do not pay for cable anymore, so I don't have TV to use on. And I could see that being a feature that if I had, I could see that being a feature that'd be cool.
Well, that's where that has come in handy. Other than that, it's just a game console, and the games need to get better. The launch games are pretty good. I think there's a strong lineup, but it's been fun.
How do you feel about the comparison between the two? Do you feel like the comparison between the two launch lineups is the same or better or worse on either side?
I think they're very comparable. I think you've got things on the PS4, the Killzone and whatnot. That Resogun is a cool game that are exclusive to that platform that are fun. And I don't think, like you said, if you buy either one of them, you're probably going to like what you're playing.
Yeah.
It isn't like either camp completely failed in the software department. But
I actually think the launch lineups for both were very comparable. Like
I think you got
a free freebies with the PS4 that were not as big a games, but made up for maybe lack of as many exclusives, and I guess they're exclusive, but still not like on disc exclusives.
Yeah.
I think it was. I actually feel like Xbox did a good job of what they need to do at a launch. I would say that I am looking forward to the next dashboard update. I feel like a lot of my concerns, a lot of my frustrations are small things that can be easily fixed. I just hope they're things that, I guess what frustrates me a little bit is I feel like a lot of times people that get the system, they just sort of accept what they get.
Yeah.
And they just accept that that's the way it is, rather than saying like, it's okay, but I would probably rather it be like this, because that's what gets things fixed. That's what gets things to the next generation. And I just hope to hear a little more of that, of like just friendly criticism, like, this could be better.
Sure, and with the whole, like you mentioned, the whole putting the latest thing first. I mean, that should be a preference. Like, you should be able to.
I can turn that offer on.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, that should. But for me, I haven't really noticed a lot of that, just because like I've just been using it in my environment. And when this thing was first announced and like talking about this, and if you go back and listen to the episode after the Xbox thing, like, I mean, that's the first thing I said. The idea of Skyping with my brother on my TV in my living room, which again could be done through other means, but this is combining all that stuff, and watching a sporting event, rewinding, putting things on, whatever, and then jumping in and out of games. It's been pretty fluid, and it's will it get old? Is it a reason to spend $100 more for a console? Probably not, but it depends on what your lifestyle is and what your entertainment focus is and how you use it in your living room. So thus far it's been pretty fun.
All right, guys. Well, we are coming up near the end of this week's Skirmish, but first we have our Battle Cries of the week, and I'm going to start mine off a little bit different. It's not really directly gaming related, but as a lot of you might know, I actually have worked retail for about 14 years. And I do not currently work retail, which is a great thing. And I will say this is going to be the first Thanksgiving that I will not have to, work some crazy hours. But that's not what this is about. What this is about is I'm really honestly, I'm really pleading with everyone out there not to not go shopping. And I really mean that. And I don't even mean don't go shopping on Thanksgiving Day if you want to. Just if you could really keep in mind the people that are out there working, not just in like I worked in electronics retail, but just in any kind of retail, anywhere you go. Really, this should be a thing you shouldn't have to ask people. This should be the way people ask on a daily basis, but especially on a day like this where I think a lot of people are frustrated. They feel like, hey, I've stood in line here for 6 hours. They should be able to get me in and out of here in 2 minutes. Well, no offense. Most of those people have to work, 10 and 12-hour shifts that day, and in some cases come back later that same day to work again. So, keep in mind that everybody is under a lot of stress, that everybody is, trying to do the best job they can.
Yeah.
I just really would ask that you kind of keep that in mind as you're out there shopping, because let's be honest, there are some really great deals, especially if you're a gamer. There's a lot of great deals. I'm tempted to go down to, I think Best Buy right now has Grand Theft Auto for $34, Grand Theft Auto 5. So I'm thinking about, and I never picked it up the first go round. So this isn't even Black Friday deals yet. So there's some great deals out there. Just do me a favor. Just keep your fellow man in mind when you're out there and try to understand that everybody
Give thanks for them being forced to work on Thanksgiving so you can get all those good deals.
Exactly. So that is what I've got for my battle cry. Brent,
yes.
What is your battle cry this week?
My battle cry this week goes out to a little bit of a holiday sale that is not going to require you to go anywhere because it's all on iOS. 2K is discounting a number of their mobile games this week. It'll run from November 27th through December the 2nd. So by the time you hear this, you'll still have plenty of time to get in on all this. And you'll be able to save some money on NHL 2K11,
Yay!
Civilization Revolution, Sid Meier's Pirates. Those are all going to be 99 cents. Lucid Games 2K Drive is going to be $2, and NBA 2K14 is going to be $3, and XCOM Enemy Unknown, which is the one you really want, is going to be discounted to $10, which is 50% off. So if you've got, I don't know about an iPhone. I think personally it's better on iPad. I think the bigger screen is kind of necessary. But if you've got an iPad and you're looking for a really, really kick-ass game for it, something that you can play on the bus, something you can play on the plane, something you can play at your aunt's house during Thanksgiving, because she's from that period of time where people don't have, technology. That was always the way my aunt's house was. But if you're looking for something to distract yourself from those kinds of things.
Stuffing's great, Aunt Adams, but where's the technology?
That's exactly right. Why do you still have a rotary phone? Those kinds of anyway. But if you're looking for like a really cool game, to have like on your iPad, maybe to take with you if you're traveling for Thanksgiving, XCOM Enemy Unknown is your jam, or at least I hope it's your jam. I fucking love the game, as I've said in the past, and it's a fantastic title to play on iOS. So anyway, that's my battle cry. Check out those titles on iOS, all deeply discounted through December the 2nd.
That's very cool, very cool. And like I said, I like the way that you don't even have to get out in the all the craziness to take advantage of that.
No.
DK, what is your battle cry this week?
My short shout out goes out to American Airlines because I was in the airport in LAX when somebody thought there was a gunshot and
I saw that.
it was batshit crazy for a few minutes and I went nuts. But I have to give props to the staff of American Airlines and basically everyone at LAX actually handled it really well. So we all got on our way. It turned out to be a false alarm and everybody was safe. So that was cool. But as far as a gaming related battle cry goes, apparently Telltale might be delivering a Game of Thrones game, which I'm pretty sure the internet will just blow up at that point. But obviously Telltale has brought us the Walking Dead series and now The Wolf Among Us, both of which I've not completed, but I'm glad they're there. And so Telltale co-founder Dan Connors has said that recently he mentioned that they're working on, quote, a few licenses that definitely fall into our dream IP scenario, and that he couldn't wait to announce those. So the rumor is that a Game of Thrones title from Telltale is on the way. We don't know if this is based on the HBO series specifically, the book in its truest form or what, but having read a couple of the books, I've not really been haven't latched onto the series, the TV series, but I am a fan of the book. So I do think this would be interesting if it happened and really huge for them. So here's to hoping that it does. And that's pretty much my battle cry. If they do it, obviously make it kick as much ass as The Walking Dead and The Wolf Among Us, from what I understand. But
The Wolf Among
yeah.
Us is fantastic. Like,
Very cool.
It's honestly, I think that Telltale is poised to
Tell some tales to their bank account.
If The Wolf Among Us is any indication of where they're taking things, a Game of Thrones game could be quite good.
Yes.
Very cool. All right. Well, Brent, I think you have our member battle cry this week.
Yes, indeed, I do, and it comes from David Comito, and he says, looking back at the last console generation and hearing what many people who have said positive things about the PS4, it seems to me that the eventual success of any game format, be it PC, handheld, or console, is one simple and subtle aspect. Whatever the device is supposed to do, does it work smoothly? The Kinect 2 would be wildly anticipated if what it offered was not perceived as being buggy. I feel that consoles are in a spot where they are being faced with PC gaming that has become increasingly more user-friendly and offering a more console-like experience. The console market has been trying to prove their distinctiveness by offering experiences like motion controls, and I believe that this is a misdirection. The PS4 has been praised so far on its ease of use and enhanced performance and a lot of seemingly small improvements that come together to make a big difference in how people are using a console, not a wild paradigm shift that I feel other console manufacturers are pushing and betting on. And I think that's true. I mean, certainly, the thing that that Tony and I have talked about with the UI, certainly the thing about like being able to do Twitch streaming and stuff like that on the PlayStation 4, it does come down to an ease of use and the ability to hit a button and have that function executed, the ability to set it up and use it really quickly. Those are all I consider to be paradigms of the console. And he's right in that PC gaming is getting better and getting closer to that kind of hassle-free experience that you associate with console gaming. And certainly I would imagine that looking at things like like the Steam machines, we just saw there was a one of the Steam machines, I guess it was like a prototype that iBuyPower was showing off. Certainly what Valve is talking about with Steam machines seems to me is they want to try to get that. They want to try to kind of take all of the advantages and the power of PC gaming and try to introduce a little bit more of that ease of use, that accessibility of console gaming, which I think is a very worthwhile endeavor.
I do agree, and I actually think in fairness, kind of speaking to the experience Daniel's had, it's the exact same thing. Like if that experience is being had, if the experience he's having with the Xbox One is the way he's having it, I would feel much better about it too. I think it's that consistency across devices to be easy to use, to function the way you expect them to. That really is the key of things going forward. I think when you look at like our cell phones, when you look at fucking like your DVRs, your little internet streaming boxes and things like that, it's always about just how easy things are to use and how responsive they are and whatnot. I almost would argue in some cases, and I think he sort of hits on this, like changing things drastically to something new is tough, because you are going to probably introduce some things in there that are going to be harder to kind of nail down perfect the first time. But in fairness, that is what's going to get us to the next steps down the road, potentially.
Right.
Whereas kind of focusing on, getting that experience just right is, arguably in the short term at least is going to make you look better too. So I don't know. I think both companies are doing good things. I think it's a very good comment that he had there.
Yep.
And it'll be interesting to see how things turn out.
The bottom line is gamers win.
Gamers win.
And I'm glad they're there.
I'm glad they're there too.
All right, well, and another thing that's not going to be there is if you try to listen to us next week, because as you all know, we are lazy, and we just don't want to do it next week. So
we just decided no.
No, we've got some scheduling things. We are not going to be able to record next week. But,
I'm gonna be freezing my ass off up in Montreal. If anyone from the Montreal development team up there at Ubisoft is listening to this, I hope you could directly point me to the coffee/cocoa machine as soon as I arrive. That's all I want to say.
But please join us the week after that when we will once again be cleaving the fat from the gaming stories of the day. For Daniel and for Brent, I'm your host, Tony Grice. And remember, cry havoc, and we are all very thankful for you being there.
Yes,
we are.
we are.
This Thanksgiving, we would like to give thanks for you and there and the two of you getting together.
Oh, goodness.